Hey everyone, I'm Uriah Kaiser, publisher and founder of Potomac Local News. If you have been in Northern Virginia, if you have watched the data centers proliferate, is the word we like to use all the time, but just up one after another, you have definitely heard about the Prince William Digital Gateway. This development is a proposed 2,100-acre data center corridor along Pageland Lane in Prince William County that would transform rural land next to Manassas National Battlefield Park into one of the largest data center complexes in the world. The rezonings were approved in December 2023 and were later declared void by Judge Kimberly Irving, who ruled that Prince William County failed to meet Virginia's legal requirements for public notice before the hearings. That was back in August. The case has since become one of the most consequential land use battles in Northern Virginia, with developers arguing they face quote unquote irreparable harm if they cannot move forward, and residents countering that any harm is self-inflicted because developers push the county to proceed despite being warned those public notice ads were defective. Homeowners in the surrounding communities, led by the Oak Valley HOA, argue that premature development would cause real and lasting harm: noise, light pollution, property value loss, traffic impacts, and environmental disruptions, such as the effects on water systems and, of course, nearby animals and nature. Those potential harms were also recognized by the trial court in its August 7th order, which documented credible testimony from residents about the risks posed by large-scale data center constructions and operations. As the litigation continues at the Court of Appeals, the HOA maintains that developers could resolve this issue by immediately refiling their applications and going through a properly noticed process, but doing so would require a new vote under the current Board of County Supervisors, which they say is less likely to approve the project. Mac Haddow argues that the developers are contradicting themselves in court, claiming that quote unquote irreparable harm if the digital gateway ruling stands, even though they previously argued the board to move forward despite defective public notices and promised to quote unquote accept all legal risk. Haddow says Judge Irving already offered a simple fix: refile, properly advertise, and redo the hearings. But developers won't take that path because a new vote under the current Board of Supervisors may fail. So the HOA maintains that the real risk of harm falls on the residents, not on the developers. Joining us to talk about all this is Mac Haddow, the Oak Valley HOA. Mac, you have been a fixture in Prince William County politics for years, and of course been on the forefront of this digital gateway battle, in addition to serving on multiple boards and commissions during your time as a resident of Prince William County. Welcome to the PLN YouTube channel and podcast. We appreciate you coming on and talking about this.
Thank you, Uriah. I'm glad to do so.
You cite in your in your statement there, you have filed a motion to get them to reconsider. You've called the developers' appeal arguments glaring hypocrisy. What do you see as contradictory in what they're telling the appeals court versus what they told the board?
Well, this is an interesting case because you have currently on the appellant side both the Board of County Supervisors and the data center developers. And it was the Board of County Supervisors attorneys who told Judge Irving that there was no interest in pursuing any land disturbance or construction of the actual data centers. But the data center developers said the opposite. They said, oh, we will suffer millions and millions of dollars in losses if we're not allowed to proceed with both the planning and the development of these facilities. And so we went to the appeals court, pointed that out, and the appeals court granted, in part, our motion for reconsideration and said that they are not, the data center developers are not permitted to do any land disturbance or any construction. So that's a great win for every citizen in Prince William County, because this is a precedent-setting case. What we experienced in 2023 was a decision by the board that impacted our community, but now it's spreading throughout the county because we're seeing more and more developments of data centers that will have the same adverse impacts on those communities as well.
Yeah, it's not just Western Prince William County anymore. It's Eastern Prince William County as you go down Route 234, and shoot, it's not just Northern Virginia anymore. We're seeing these data centers pop up across Virginia, across the state. Uh, Back in 23, when this project was approved by the Board of County Supervisors in a December vote after, nearly 20-hour public hearing. The developers said that they would accept the legal risk, but it seems like their story has changed here. How do you think that squares with their claim now, with the fact that the claim they'll suffer irreparable harm?
So the old adage applies. They want to have their cake and they want to be able to eat it too. And here is a perfect situation where they are standing before one court and saying, oh, we're not trying to do that, but we will suffer these harms. And then go to another court and say, well, that's exactly what we want to do. And unfortunately, the county attorneys have become willing partners in this. And by the way, when these developers assured the Board of County Supervisors they would accept all legal risks, what has the county done? We've spent more than $1 million in taxpayer funds, our money, fighting against our citizens, and the Board of County Supervisors hasn't demanded repayment from the data center developers for their claim that they would accept all of these legal risks. And that the appeals court decision, now the appeals court review, is going to cost us millions more as taxpayers. It's costing our community an enormous amount of money, and we're bearing that burden against multinational billion-dollar corporations who are throwing everything but the kitchen sink against us in order to bleed us dry for money in order to stop this lawsuit. And that's their tactic now. Every week we get another motion which adds legal costs to the burden our plaintiffs in this case. And it's unfair, and the courts hopefully will recognize that at some point.
So after the August 7th decision by Judge Irving in Prince William County Court, the Board of Supervisors got together, held a closed session, and decided that they would appeal that ruling. And it was a head scratcher for a few people, more than a few people who live in the county, wondering who exactly the board works for. Is it for the developers of data centers, or is it for the residents who have opposed these data centers and came out in mass and said we don't want these because of various reasons? So the question is, if they do restart this process, if it starts all over again, what would that look like for residents?
So that decision was mind-boggling to everybody other than the data center people who openly claim that their influence bought them this decision. There is no reason for the board to even pursue this because the remedy proposed by Judge Irving was simple. You goofed up on the notice. And that's true. The evidence from the clerk of the board and the Washington Post demonstrated clearly that the county did not have the benefit of what's called their safe harbor because they made the mistake. So the simple solution that Judge Irving gave was start the process again and let's rehear it. But we know that what happened in 2023 was led by former Chair Wheeler, who is a great advocate for the data center industry. And let me tell you, we're not against data centers. We just think they should be cited appropriately and not have the impacts that they currently have on our communities. But I think at the time, Supervisor Angry, Franklin, Bailey, and Bodie, none of whom at the time had any data centers in their districts, all sided with the data center developers. That's changing. Andrea Bailey now is facing a real problem because she's seeing a data center development that has the very same negative impacts on her community as we've experienced in the Gainesville district. So I think things are changing. And I think what the developers of the data centers are fearing is if they did what Judge Irving recommended, an easy, timely, and effective solution, they wouldn't win. They don't think they have the votes on the Board of County Supervisors anymore. They certainly don't have Chair Wheeler. And this was a major issue in her defeat.
Yeah, that was
They now have
huge.
to face a new board.
Wheeler was driving this issue. She wanted to get that vote in December 2023 before the board turned over. And you might remember, those who are listening, Wheeler lost a primary challenge from Deshandra Jefferson, who is now the sitting at-large chair of the Board of County Supervisors, who campaigned on that being as gung-ho on data centers, if you will, as Ann Wheeler was. Ann Wheeler really approved a lot of projects under the Ann Wheeler board. And so you've suggested that developers are avoiding the revote because of today's board led by Deshandra. Do you believe that a new vote would fail?
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
require 4 votes in order to approve it. And what we have today is a better educated board. They understand more than they knew before about the data center impacts and negative impacts. But I'll tell you, one of the worst things that the county has done for every citizen of Prince William County is they routinely enter into non-disclosure agreements with these data center companies. Now, I agree that there's some proprietary information that should be protected from competitors. But what these NDAs did is that they granted a license to the Board of Supervisors to protect any information. During the court proceeding, the judge asked and could not get information about where exactly these data center buildings would be located because that was important to whether or not the standing issue, which means is the proximate resident going to be impacted. And she called the developers out when they pointed out to our plaintiffs, you can't even tell me where that data center building is that you're complaining about. And we said, yes, because you haven't told us. And the only people that know where those buildings being cited are the data center developers. We know what the boundaries are, the perimeter, but why the county engages in this kind of deception to protect data center operators and not unbundle these non-disclosure agreements to only apply to proprietary information that protects their ability to protect against competitors. Why we're doing this, I don't know, and they continue to do it. It is unethical, it is wrong, and it works against the interest of every citizen of Prince William County.
The board has certainly changed hands since this decision in recent years. I mean, right, you back then, Wheeler was obviously the chair. Now, we've seen, in addition to the new chair, we've seen new representation in the Gainesville district by Tom Gore. Gordy's in Brentsville.
Yeah.
Now Gainesville, George Stewart, who has just been elected to the board in a special election. So we'll continue to watch the changes here on the board and how that plays a role. And and as we mentioned, it's interesting to see them wanting to continue to fight this. I guess the question now for residents like yourself who live near where this massive data center complex could be built is, what protections do residents have while these appeals play out? I mean, could we start to see construction any day now, or is there still some space, some time before we would see that?
So currently, the appeals court barred the data center developers from doing any land disturbance or any building construction. That was a critical piece of the whole puzzle that we needed protection from. And thank goodness the appeals court granted that. And do you know what the developers are doing? They're appealing it further. They want to be able to dig the ground. They want to be able to put up buildings. And do you know why? Because if they lose at the appeals court process or in the Supreme Court, they're going to then go back to the county and say, oh, we know you don't like this project, but we've already spent tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars and the buildings are already up. And if you deny it, we're going to have to take those buildings down. Well, that's the risk they take. And it's about time that the Board of County Supervisors started to hold these data center developers accountable. They need to be, and I don't think they'll build, well, they can't build now. They're barred from building currently by the appeals court decision. And only if it's overturned on that issue will they be able to proceed that way. But they're still going to be out, doing the transmission line plans. It is now clear that the Prince William Digital Gateway does not have the power capacity to run. And what that means is one thing, that they'll build the buildings, they'll put up the thousands of cargo truck sized generators, and they'll just run them off the generators. And that will add to air pollution that will be astronomical in the community. When you've got thousands of diesel generators pumping those effluents into the air, it has health impacts and visual impacts. And look at the letters of the last 3 superintendents of the Manassas National Battlefield Park. That's one of their greatest concerns, is that you will degrade the experience, the sacred experience of standing on hallowed ground and being able to experience that, the Manassas Battlefield Park experience. It will be gone because people will now be seeing data center buildings and pollution and noise 24/7. And do you know what the data center people say? Oh, we'll paint the buildings taupe. I'm sorry, that's not mitigating the harm. And we need to fight back. And that's why our community is taking a stand. We hope that the entire county will join us. You're right. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about my. Looks like I was muted there. So, the data centers say they only run those generators in event of a power outage or a load on the grid, or only in emergency situations. But like it's so. But they all come with the possibility of running these generators. And the other thing here is if you remember back when I believe it was Eli Lilly started construction on what was going to be a massive building just outside Manassas, across the street from where Two Silos Brewing is now. And they stopped. They just kind of, they had the steel in place and they just kind of stopped. And then we all kind of scratched our head and said, well, what's happening? And the whole project ended. So I don't think anybody wants to be in the business of building a building and then having to tear it down, or, because we've seen that happen in Prince William County. I think, shocker, I think it's a data center now. I think they did tear down that steel and they put a data center there, but it has happened in the past. Mac, I as we wrap up here, what do you think the community needs to know and to watch for between the deadline to decide whether to appeal? What should community residents be looking out for?
Well, we hope that when we win at the appeals court level, or even if we lose, that the county will abandon funding the appeal, because the only remedy we asked for, the only one, was to revote this thing, reapply, have the hearings again, properly notice them, and revote. That's all we asked for. So there would be no standing without the county going to the Virginia Supreme Court. It would cut years off of this process. It would save a lot of money for Prince William County constituents. But let me emphasize one point that is on the table that everybody knows. There's no one that can escape this fact. The power grid operators have already told Loudoun County data centers and the Prince William Digital Gateway they don't have the power to actually power these up. And if they build them, they are going to have to be running on backup generated power almost constantly, because a data center, once operational, can't go down. It has to operate 24/7, which is the purpose of those diesel generators. Tens of thousands of gallons of diesel fuel an hour to run those backup generators by the thousands, and you start multiplying them, and then you see the pollution impact, the noise impact, and the degradation of the quality of life in our community. This project needs to go someplace else, and the county needs to take the lead in making sure that happens.
Mac Haddow, the Oak Valley HOA. I really appreciate you coming on talking to us about this today.
Thank you, Ryan. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving. And we'll keep watching this, folks. Thanks for joining us here on PLN. What do you think? Are you affected by these data centers? Are you in Prince William County, or are you affected by this digital gateway? What do you think about this massive 2,100 acre data center complex to be built next to Manassas National Battlefield Park, which is the location of two major Civil War battles, and a really significant tourism draw to not only the region, but to the East Coast. And if you're not in Prince William County, are you seeing data centers pop up where you live? Are you in Stafford? Are you in Spotsylvania? Are you in Caroline? Are you in Virginia Beach? Where are you in Virginia? Tell us where you are and if you're affected by these data centers as well. And what do you think? Please leave your comments. I do read them and I do love hearing from you. So thank you for joining us here on PLN. Please, if you want more local news, go to our website, potomaclocal.com. Sign up for our free email newsletter. Send that out every day at 4 p.m. And we make sure that it is tailored to you with local news you just won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much and have a great day.